Everybody just continue to breathe. Become mindful of where you are in your mind and in your heart. Ask your mind and heart to be open to the divine wisdom and intelligence of the all-knowing God. And God, we humbly come before you this day because we are seeking an increased foundation in our faith, an activity of faith that is stronger than we've ever had before. A simple faith such as, God's got this, knowing that there is no reason to fear. God, we recognize that your presence is everywhere we go. We're dressed in your presence. We stand in your presence. And we are surrounded by your presence and your power. And affirm to yourself, I am filled with the faith of God. I use my faith in my daily life, knowing that you are with every step and every breath that I take, dear God. For there is nothing to fear, for you are always here. We ask for the increase of our awareness of your activity around us. For all the angels and archangels and ascended masters that you have assigned to us, may we become aware of their presence. We've come into this world, Lord, to know you more, to move through lessons that we need to learn, our soul needs to learn, to increase our consciousness of your divine presence, to know ourselves as the Christ. For the Christ in me is my hope of glory. The Christ in me shall never leave me desolate. The Christ in me will always find a way where I think there is no way. I surrender. I surrender to this Christ presence, knowing all is well. All is well. There is nothing greater in all the world and universes than the power of God, the power of the Spirit of God that is within me. I stand on this foundation of truth, and I ask to be set free of all fears, all concerns, all what ifs or could haves. I am free from that. For I am the light. I am the light. And so it is. Amen. 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 Good morning, everybody, again. I really like the story of David and Goliath. It's a powerful story. If I read it from the Bible, it's 2.5 pages long. So I found a summary of it. Okay? So, and it has the most valuable points in it. Okay? So I would like to share this story with you. There's 2 stories about David and Saul. And the first story is when David placed the harp to soothe the weary mind of Saul. Isn't that cool? A friend come along and just play some music for you to ease your burdens. Yeah. The second story about David, the giant killer, begins with the Israelites and the Philistines confronting each other already for a big battle. They were situated on 2 hills. One day, David came to the Israelite camp with food from home for his brothers in the army. Remember, the Israelites metaphysically represent illuminated thoughts. Okay? And the Philistines represent forces foreign to spirit that are opposed to truth. Okay? So really, that's the battle. I just want to make that clear. Isn't that interesting? Okay. When he arrived, he heard Goliath challenging any Israelite to come out and fight him. All the soldiers were reluctant to take up the challenge. Goliath was a giant man. According to the story, he was 9.5 feet tall and loaded with heavy armor. I'd be a little intimidated too. I don't know about you, He appeared, as his appearance and challenge struck terror in the Israelite soldiers. When David saw their fear, he was amazed and horrified. David had a simple faith and trust in God. How much is our faith? How much is our trust in God? He believed that with the Lord on his side, he could defeat any challenge. Do we believe we can defeat any challenge? Yes. But do we act in faith, simple faith and trust in God, really believing that God's got this and God's going to do it through me? Because this is really basically the belief of this young boy. He wasn't even a man. He was a young man, a young boy. He believed that Israel could not be defeated since the Lord was on his side of Israel, and he was therefore quite surprised to see the negative reactions of the soldier in the Lord's army. David was quick to take up the challenge of fighting the giant. Faith of a child, right? Faith of the innocent. The other soldiers thought it was ridiculous that a scrawny kid would even think of fighting a giant, but they took him to Saul to get his permission. At first, Saul was very reluctant, but David convinced him because David talked to him about how he was a shepherd and he fought off, bears and other wild animals while taking care of the flock. Saul finally consented. He even offered David his armor, but David said, it's too heavy. I can't do it with this armor. So he denied his armor. So David went to meet the giant with a slingshot. On the way, he picked up 5 smooth stones from a riverbed. When Goliath saw David coming to meet him, he was flabbergasted. Can you imagine this 9.5-foot giant looking at this young kid going, what? What? Are you kidding me? Right? The giant said, am I a dog that you've come to me with sticks? He cursed David and laughed at him. He thought he would have a ridiculously easy fight in taking care of David. He further said to David, come to me and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the fields. Goliath's sarcasm, threats did not scare David. Do you know sarcasm also means the tearing of flesh? Isn't it? Yeah. I used to be a very sarcastic person when until I found out what it meant, because it really gets to the core of you, doesn't it? The tearing of flesh, yeah. David said to the giant, you come to me with a sword and a spear with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied. David even went further and said to the giant, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. That's pretty powerful. This little kid's going to cut off this giant's head. Wow. Goliath probably laughed at this outburst of confidence. He did not think David had a chance with him. They came together for the battle. David took a stone and put it in his sling, and he slung the stone at the giant, hitting him on the forehead, right here. And what's right there? What power is right here? Our third eye, it's our power of imagination. Right? So when we go to battles in our life, or we're walking through fears in our life, is it not our fear, what we're imagining? Our imagination increases our fear because we're seeing the worst, or we're assuming the worst. Well, needless to say, he took the giant out. One stone, one shot, bang. He was down. He was gone. And he ran to him and with his sword and cut his head off. That's a pretty powerful story. And when the Philistines saw what happened to Goliath, they panicked and fled. I would have too if I was them, wouldn't you? My God, this kid's powerful beyond measure. And you know what? So are we. You know, the Bible describes him as a simple faith and trust. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I get all wrapped up around the axle about something, you know, and the what ifs, or I should have, or I could have, and what are they thinking, and all this kind of stuff that goes, the gymnastics, the negative gymnastics that goes on in our brains. Then we start imagining this stuff, which gives it more power. David stood firm in his faith. He stood firm in his belief in God. David stood and said, basically, God, here I am, use me to help my family, the Israelites. And this is the Israelites, the new thoughts. The illuminated thoughts of God are trying to get out again and be expressed. And there's the ego, the giant, who is scaring. Doesn't your ego scare you sometimes? Really, if we stop to think about it, isn't it pretty scary? That we think we know everything, we know what's better for the other person. You know, that we, yeah. And look, like when we're going through challenges in our life, what about a severe loss of someone that you dearly love in your life? What about relationships? God, we're all terrorized, when we're in a relationship and we broke up. It almost paralyzes us that we can't do anything. That's what fear does. It paralyzes us. And we get caught in it and we get stuck in it. And I learned something new this week. That my feelings and my emotions, you know what? They're not facts. I've known that. They're just feelings. They're not facts. But somebody said when you're getting upset about something, that I need to ask these feelings, what's the lesson here? What's the lesson here? Yeah. What is it that I need to learn from this situation? What is it that I need to learn from all these feelings? I can't change the other person. David couldn't change Goliath. Our ego keeps us in bondage. It paralyzes us. It numbs us out. I'm sure all of you have had some of these feelings. Am I right? Right? Okay, I just want to make sure. Anxiety, a sense of loss. It's crazy, but David, he was a godly young man. And maybe we need to ask ourselves the question, what fearful experience took away from our faith? What experiences took away from my faith? Your faith. Because we have to look at that if we want to heal. We have to look at that if we want to open ourselves up to greater opportunities in life. The meaning of the story is that on a higher level of consciousness, if we keep going back to our faith and we keep returning back to the truth that we know will set us free from all that negative bondage, this is really the meaning of the story. David, all those soldiers were intimidated. Who intimidates you in your life? What intimidates you in life? Is that not the giant? What is our giants, folks? Sometimes I just don't even have the energy sometimes to fight anymore with people. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's just, you go, oh God, this is not worth it. I really want to win the war with myself. I don't really want to be winning these battles with other people. It's not that important. It's our perception of what is happening out here in the outer world that we make into giants. And look at our political arena. Aren't they making giants out of a whole bunch of stuff? Whether it's in the United States or, other countries. And Mother Nature, she's really trying to cleanse and purify. We got a lot of rains and we got a lot of tornadoes. She's trying to put herself back into balance. And waking up our consciousness. A giant in our life is a misconception in our minds. Remember the word fear? It stands for false evidence appearing real. And there's times, I don't know about you, and you go, I'm looking at this and I know what I'm feeling and I know it's not the truth. I just know it's not the truth. And I really feel that this is why breathing is so important. We have to breathe in and breathe out so our body can begin to relax and to let go. It's about us standing in the firm foundation that I am not going to let you take the best of me. The best of me is going to come forward, and I am going to slay this, I was going to say dragon, that too, this giant. Whatever you want to call it. What's the giant in your mind that's preventing you from doing greater things in your life, about you being greater in your life? Why are we so shy of standing in our greatness? Richard Billings, he must be here today because I hear him remember in one sermon what he said. Stop asking yourself what's wrong with you and start asking yourself what is right with you. Isn't that going to take you back to your God core if you start thinking about what's right with me? I have the presence of God within me. There's nothing greater than this presence of God that is within me. I can overcome anything in my life because the Christ in me is my hope of glory. The Christ in me is my hope of glory. David was not afraid to accept the challenge. And sometimes that's it. We have to accept the challenge. This is what's happening, and I know I can move through it. Through prayer, through meditation, through talking with people. Getting other people's thoughts and feelings and perceptions. It doesn't mean that they're all right, more right than you are, but it helps you to expand your mind. It helps you to expand your faith. And that's what we're here to do. And you know what? And I'm going to say this. Check out your previous religious belief systems that were programmed into you and into me. Some of that stuff blocks us from moving forward because we think we're so unworthy or, God doesn't favor me. God favors all of us. God favors all of us. We're all divine in the mind of God. God doesn't have favorites. If God had favorites, it would be all of us. But we got to stop. And, the Israelites, if we want to express more truth, we want to express more of the light of God that we are in our lives, we have to look at our fears. We have to look at that giant fear and just cut the head off. Because it's happening up here. Stop giving it so much power in our imagination, yours and mine. We got to say enough is enough. Because you know what? Nobody can make you happy. Happiness is an inside job. And remember that the battles that the giants that we face in our lives, they're there to make us stronger. It's not a punishment. It really isn't. Our soul resume says you need to learn this lesson. Let's learn it and move on. Let's learn it and move on. And, there was something I learned in my 12-step program. We have two best friends in our mind and hearts. You know what they are? Justification and rationalization. We can make anything right, can't we? Even a negative thought, we can make it right. We can make it right. Oh, I deserve this, How can I justify this? Giants are giants. I've always called them dragons inside of me, because I do sometimes feel like this flame is coming out of my mouth, especially when I'm angry and I might be taking it out on loved ones, It's the dragon lady. or the barroom lady. But we're in church. I called her the lady, barroom lady. She's not very pretty sometimes. She's not. And we all have somebody inside of us that's not too pretty. And we just have to go in there and cut the head off of the giant. And we don't have to be mean towards ourselves or towards other people. We don't have to be sarcastic. We don't always have to tell them what time of day it is. You know, just take it in, think on it. And one of the things I learned in life, if somebody gives you feedback, you know, or tells you something about yourself, analyze it. You know, take what might be true and just get rid of the rest. If there's parts that they might be saying might be true about you, then you need to look at that and see if that's really the truth about you. It does not take a lot of equipment in the outer to change our lives. It really doesn't. It does not take a lot of metaphysical formulas. All it takes is a simple faith and trust in God. You look at Jesus' teachings, they're all quite simple, but sometimes so difficult to either remember or to apply in our lives. Jesus gave us the biggest spiritual tool case we can possibly have. It's endless. There's no bottom to it. You open it up and all the spiritual tools are there. So don't forget, build your consciousness in the morning before you set forth, and know that if any dragons come in your way, any giants, 9.5 feet giants, if they come in your way, you can take care of it. You can take care of it when you commune, when you connect with your inner source and supply for everything, and that is your Christ self. And all of God's people say, Amen. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed working on this lesson because, you know, it really made me think about a lot of different things that were going on in my life. And also, I just want to add one more thing. Remember when Moses was trying to free the Israelites? And he had to deal with the Pharaoh who was represented by the ego? See, it's worth fighting to have truth be set free in you. Yeah. I just got to remember that all the time.